Hello and welcome to this week's Kerbo. This episode, we will be rescuing Jebediah from the moon. Don't imagine the moon with little moon men with guns. It's just last episode we sent him to the moon with a rover, and it's been a week. He's enjoyed the sun, of which there's much. An atmosphere, he's loved that. He's loved driving around. He's found lots of data. The crash rover now, so it's kind of useless. And it's time to bring him home. This is just me fucking times fouring a lot of this video because this took about an hour and no one wants to watch it for an hour, so yeah, this is now only about 25 minutes. Speeding through this part quite quickly because this part is fairly so obvious now. This is just setting up a circular orbit on takeoff, gravity slinging. Yeah, fairly standard stuff really. Created a new craft for this, nothing too out there. The idea of this was it's a cockpit which had two seats in it. One of those seats is empty. Going to land fairly close to this is me overshooting the circularized orbit quite a lot, and as such my hypothesis is way too large. It's important to have a circular orbit so when you start trying to plan out your ascent to the moon, as you spin it around the orbit you don't have to keep readjusting it. It helps a lot. So this is me recircularizing it. Usually a rule of thumb is I always try and make it the lowest point above 120,000. It's not above that because of the slight overburn. Reason you want it that is so you can time jump efficiently, and about above times 100. Of course that's not needed because I don't need to do a whole loop around the moon of the Kerbon. This is me now setting up a Hans transfer to the moon. I want a low orbit, so I've set up for 13,000 meters. One thing about this though is that even the slightest bit of delta phi can add on thousands of meters, so this part is never exact because I'm not like Mick Jab, I can't do it exactly, but burning it, I believe I undershoot a little. No, I overshoot a little, so didn't think you could see it there. The actual is now 172. This is a bit of video glitch. This was Kerbal glitch, not the video. 172 now gone up to 280. I don't know why that increased or why it's still increasing. Perhaps it's just, I don't know actually. But I try and burn it a bit. It didn't work, so I span it in the opposite direction. Span it some more, and now it is a perhaps which is manageable. Last time on this mission I just sent it straight down onto the bright side of the moon. This time, because that wouldn't be accurate enough, because I'm trying to land next to a previously landed target, I have to set up a circular orbit on the moon. As you can see, I'm making a maneuver now. One thing with this is that I find that when you get to the moon, it tends not to be as accurate as it claims to be, even if you try burning it at the exact right time. But once again, I think that's more random error than anything. Now, as I was saying, you need a circular orbit on the moon because how I do it in this video is I get the circular orbit, I angle it so the orbit goes directly above the previously landed place. In this case it is Jeb, and that's because it's directly above. If I set another maneuver, as I will do in a minute, I ran out of fuel there, so I couldn't exactly do it as I wanted, and as you can see it was quite different. I need to set up my new engine. I'm quite worried at this point because there are hills on the moon which are above 5,000 in height, so I'm just quickly checking to make sure it won't crash. Once I know it doesn't crash, I turn on this engine. I forget the thrusters are still up, so it ends up lowering my propulsors again. I do some more checking here quite thoroughly to make sure I won't slam into the side of the moon. Luckily I find it doesn't. I'm not sure if I time pass this. I think I do cut out the video later on for reasons I explained, but I get to about heights of 200 meters above the ground, which is insanely close. But now I am creating another maneuver to set an orbit, or it doesn't have to be an orbit even, it just has to go directly over the Jeb. Start zooming it on. There's a bit of losing delta phi, so it's not too high up, because if it's too high up I lose a lot of delta phi going down. As you can see, I forgot my steam settings were on. But if it's too high, too low, I hit the ground. Too high, I lose too much fuel. But no, I get into a position in which I'm happy with. It's going to be about 20,000 above him, which is more than enough delta. I've got more than enough delta phi to handle that. It looks fairly accurately over him. On this screen, it's kind of hard to see because of the size of the moon. Because my propulsors is so low, I can't times very quickly at this point. This looks different, so I try and adjust it, but I think it was the angle of which I was looking at it. Now, as I was saying, because the propulsors is so low down, I can't time skip. So I could zoom it up, but because of how fast it would be zooming, the video would start glitching out quite significantly. So once I was done setting this new orbit, this new maneuver up, I decided just to skip half of the rotation in the video. I believe I skip it about the propulsors when it sends me down to time warp 1. Because it's too low, and as you can see, my actual altitude is only 2,000 above the ground, and it gets much lower. No, time skip there, looks very cool, to about 30 seconds before my correction maneuver. The hypothesis is now 28,000, or the predicted hypothesis will be 28,000. I did practice this quite a lot off camera, and the closest I landed to it was 1.7 kilometers. In this video though, it gets quite a lot off, and I believe, as you will see in a bit, it is above 10. But no, I burned that maneuver perfectly within 1 meter a second. The hypothesis is not affected. I'm trying to line this up now so I can see it's exactly over Jet, which I focus on the moon now because it makes it slightly easier to plan maneuvers when you're on the other side of the moon. And at this point, my plan is, now that I know I'm directly over it, to lose all velocity, which is what this maneuver's doing. There's a bit of a glitch here because the maneuver setting goes in the corner. I found that pretty freaky, but it doesn't affect the overall result. So now, just cutting down all velocity. as close over it as I can. As the time skip occurs, it starts becoming a little more inaccurate, so I have to readjust this once or twice. Setting it up in line with the maneuver, so as it rotates it follows the maneuver node. I've got 526 delta phi required, and I've got about 4,000 left, so easy, really. This is the top half of the ship with a pretty unique design. Where the lander is, below it is 2 docking stations. I don't think I had to make those docking stations, but basically that's the way I plan to land and then have enough fuel to get back to Kerburn. As I land, I inject the extra fuel into the lander. So when the lander lands, hopefully it doesn't hit. I mean, I know it doesn't hit, but no mission you want it to hit. This is a really long burn, by the way. So I sped it up, but it is 70 seconds, more or less. Now, as the fuel is being burnt, I start injecting fuel into it. So the lander has enough fuel to get back to Kerburn. You can see it's the spare fuel tanks at the bottom start losing fuel instead of the top. When that runs out, the top starts losing fuel, so I have to get this other spare tanker and start filling that up. At this point, I nearly forget about the maneuver because I'm so focused on the making sure everything's got the right fuel that I nearly, but 0.7, it was fine. Burn off what little I needed to do. Check out both the fuel tanks have that set so retrograde, and it is pointing straight down, meaning the only real force is gravity, which makes landing so much easier and you don't have to worry about going sideways as well as down. Then at this point I am 18,000 meters up instead of 1615, and I do these things now where whenever I get to 100, I burn off fuel using the spare fuel. I burn off that delta phi using this spare fuel down to 50. Then I inject the fuel back in because fuel burns downwards, so the top leaves first. And basically this is so I can use up as much as the spare fuel as possible landing without having to worry about the rover, the lander not having enough fuel. I'm saying rover because I'm thinking about rescuing Jeb. But nope, just keep doing that. Time warp 100, lose 50. Stop, check the fuel in. Stop. And yeah, there were probably less convoluted ways to do this, but I wanted to try and make this slightly unique, as well as having enough fuel to go back. But because I'm getting quite low now, I'm only about 500 meters away. I decide now it's time to lose all speed. You can see I forgot Steam notifications again. Lose it all speed, put all the fuel in, start burning off all excess fuel. To land safely, as you can see, suicide burn, I only really required 41. Might have needed, I think I used about 60 here, which isn't really a problem when I've got over 2,000 left. So I had to eject out about 500 to make sure I don't land on top of it and the subsequent explosions doesn't kill me, which is also why I burnt quite a lot of fuel to begin with. But only a few centimeters off the ground now. Burn most fuel, lose it, burn it. Touchdown at a safe 1.3 or nearly fell over because of the cliff. But no, and as you can see, it is 13.3 meters. Time to pick Jebediah up. Well, an amazing story just happened. Jebediah got to the rescue vessel and went, nope, don't want to. He then just suddenly took off on his E3 fuel and just flew straight out of the moon's orbit. He said, I'll see you back at Kerbin. So, I know, it sounds amazing, right? All this effort wasted. But no, we've still got Bill. We need Bill back, so in the least efficient way possible, I burn 1,000 Delta Phi to escape the moon's pool and create this little orbit around Kerbin free from the moon's interference. I could have done another Hans transfer, but at this point, I wasn't sure how much fuel that would cost, so I knew this would work because of how much fuel I had left. Oh, whoops, sorry there. So now that I've got this orbit up, I start. Oh, you can see I nearly ended up back on the moon again. That would have been helpful if it was a rescue from the moon. But I start burning up lots of Delta Phi. Little required as making orbits because there's no gravity affecting me, so the thrust to mass ratio is insane. I had this at 35, which would have been alright, but then I thought maybe I could aim straight down and just let the Kerbin pull me straight in. But I decided against that because of the G-force the parachutes would have had to endure going straight down. Probably would have tore them straight off. So I'm at this point, I'm also worried about landing in the dark as I did in my first video. So I set it to about 78. I think that's fine. So, because when I'm at that paralysis, I plan to do another burn to land in a continent which has light in it. Daytime. So yeah, this was not the quickest way. So, fly out to the hypothesis. This takes 5 days. The mission has been so far. Jebediah probably beat me back. Got down to this one. As I said before, there are some inaccuracies on the long orbits, and you can see I'm clearly past the node, yet that was the recommended time for it, so it could be more accurate, but not really complaining. Because this mission so far has worked beautifully. Burn that node fairly well to within 0.1 whatever. Don't really need to adjust it anymore. Not being that tedious. That's another 2 days. So the whole mission is going to last about a week. Is that time skipping? The name NMLB means no man left behind, because I think you can understand why. Yeah, get to this point and I decide to start. This is me struggling to find a point where I could make a maneuver because for some reason it wouldn't let me at any point. But then I find one here. Start burning it down. This costs, because of the atmosphere of Kerbin, this costs a lot of Delta Phi. Just a bit of me fine tracking here. I end up nearly creating an orbit instead of going into Kerbin, which would not have been helpful, but I managed to save it and get it within 60, try again and get it within 6. 6, the parachutes would have been able to start working very effectively, so I decided that's enough. This is another very long burn. So you can see by the wobbling how much it affects it, as well as nearly entering the moon's orbit again. But this is a 69-second burn. So start burning here. Another time scale to not an actual time. It does cutting the video to make it seem quicker does help, because some people are thrown off at watching our videos. But as I said, 1 meter a second left, don't really mind. This is why I don't like landing in the dark, because I can barely see anything watching this back. At this point, I'm already kind of celebrating a mission success. But the last practice I did of this, I only had one parachute on. It didn't have enough stopping force, so it hit the ground at 30 meters a second and subsequently died. But that's what simulations are for. That taught me to put 4 more parachutes on, which have been deployed. And now it's just time scaling it, hoping that the parachutes don't tear off because of G-force or because of the heat. I don't run the deadly re-entry mod, although comment if you want. The first one parachute gets deployed, the second 4 get deployed. Check out that deceleration. And this is a lovely view, I find. I go into cockpit view, he's looking straight down and it looks magnificent. So that is the max my laptop can run. Nope, further decelerate. This is on time skip 8, I believe. From the point it starts landing takes 15 minutes. I believe now it only takes 3 or 4. But no, losing it quickly. The big parachute deploys at 2,500 meters off the ground in actual height, which is why you see a sudden jump in G-force. That sudden force that happens again at 500 meters, as you will see, because the second set of parachutes deploy. That jump wasn't as big as before, but with all these parachutes totally not crisscrossing each other, very little speed, and a few meters off the ground I accidentally started burning, and the parachutes saw it, and you see that little bouncing at the end, which was that nearly very killed Bill. But no, Bill's alright. Gets off his craft to see this new continent, and that's gotta hurt. That looked just painful. I hope Bill's not a man. But no, I am on the exact opposite side of the world to where the Kerbal Space Center is. I have never actually been this far around the world before. But what happened to Jeb, as the video is pointing out? Well, go back to the administrations in a second, and you see he got back alright. And that is what I call a successful rescue mission. Everyone lived.